Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber. This is from a guy, he's 51 years old, he's recently divorced, and he's going to share his story how, like so many guys out there, he was raised in a household primarily by his mom to be the typical nice guy, gentleman type. And as you can imagine, that didn't help him too well throughout his life, and particularly with his marriage to his wife. And you're going to see here in this story that unfortunately things go south with his wife, with her doing some pretty awful things to him and not having a care in the world. However, through all his struggle and hardships, this guy makes a great comeback. This guy, instead of just giving up, he makes a comeback and eventually discovers RP content, and it has really helped him essentially be born again, if you will. And the guy's doing great, and even 51 years old, he's discovered that learning this material and how it's made him see things differently, as well as helping him get his life together, has really been a big help. So I think it was a great one to cover here, guys. And this definitely works on many fronts, and I'm really happy to hear that he's doing better. But you're going to see, he was definitely doing pretty bad for a while. And I guess the point of this whole story is that even though, guys, you go through hard times and you feel like giving it all up, you can survive. You can get by. You can rebuild yourself, reinvent yourself, and start anew great life. And this is what this guy's on the path of doing, and I'm really happy to hear that. So all you guys that may be struggling right now, you can turn it around. Don't give it up. Don't give everything up. Think about ending it all because some a-hole woman who you were great to try to ruin you. Okay? Don't want to give up. So it starts off, he says, hi SSM. I discovered your channel 3 months ago, and I must say when it happened, it couldn't be the best moment for it. He says, first of all, I'm Hispanic, but I'll do my best to write this letter as accurate as I can. So a few words are a little off, as you can see my first sentence there, but he does pretty good. I'm a 51-year-old man. I'm divorced. One daughter. That is the most beautiful thing that has happened to me in my life. He says, to explain a little bit about my journey to RP, I've been raised totally as a total blue pill. He says, no, my mom was not a single MOM. My father was busting his butt the whole day to provide for the family. My mom, a stay-at-home mom, and 5 children. So I was raised in the early years by my grandmas, who tried their best to educate me as the young gentleman that you can see in the British movies, because they were risen like that. In the meanwhile, my mother was quite busy attending my baby brother, the second because I'm the oldest, and my parents' house was on another location. So his mom, grandma's raising to be that gentleman. See guys, and this was a different culture, different part of the world. Due to the nature of my father's job and the fact that my father has to work in a very demanding long hours or days, he had a little time for us, but when he arrived home, me and my siblings ran to hug him and have a little chat with him. But my mom always told us not to bother our father too long because he's too tired. So now I can realize I had almost no significant chats with my father about relations with women, and to be honest, I didn't have the confidence to talk with my dad about such things, saying that it left me to hear always my mother's chat with other female friends of the neighborhood. But now I also realize that my mom brought those topics for me to hear them, so hopefully I follow her point of view. To spare you about those topics that my mother used to talk about relationships with women, it was all about how men should be basically blue pills. Well, that's how they see things. And the thing is, there are gals out there that do it on purpose, knowing it's BS, but a lot of them don't get it. Truly don't get it. They say they want the guy to be the gentleman and do all these things they claim they want them to do, and you all know what I'm talking about, but when the guy actually does that, it turns them off, right? And you think, they must be crazy. Well, there is some truth to that, but also they don't get it. And they claim they don't like the bad boys, and yet their actions show who do they always go for. So I've told you many times in videos, never, ever, 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 ever take dating, relationship, pickup advice, all that type of stuff from women. Don't even waste your freaking time. Occasionally you'll meet some that can't get some elements of things. Maybe you've had even a couple that really got things, but by and large, don't do it. Talk to men that are experienced, that have been through hell and back, and are actually have kind of good with women. They'll help you out, but they'll probably tell you things the blue pill programming the guys don't want to hear. Anyway, he says, I cannot say my mother was a effeminist because my father passed away a little more than a decade ago, and they loved each other till he departed. And the fact that those were different times, not compared to nowadays, Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0. You know it. I stupidly not only followed all the things my mother said when I was a kid, but those things were like carved with fire in my mind and my personality, and needless to say, I brought only misery to my life. Yes. Well, bro, get in line, because you got countless other dudes that essentially were raised like you, thought the same thing, and had brought misery to their lives. But they turned things around, and you were turning things around, so there's hope for everyone. I recently divorced my daughter's mother, let's call her Lucy, also 51, after around 6 or 7 years living apart from each other. But at the moment of D-Day, we were on our 24th or 25th year of marriage. I must say that was the most traumatic day of my life. My marriage, to be honest, started with a left foot. It was rocky from the beginning because we got married at a very young age. We were like 20 or 21. Smack. Too young, dude. He says, I know, I deserve a huge smack in the head for that. Well, you got it. I've always been taught that as a man, we must stay strong, work hard, provide for the family, try hard to please a wife, and whatever the shit you have to put up with in your marriage life, it's okay. It's the right thing to do because that's what the man has to do. That's the man's job. Well, I agree with the part about we must stay strong. I agree with that. Work hard. I agree with that. Provide for the family. I agree with that. But the whole trying hard to please the wife, this goes into the happy wife, happy life BS. Bad idea, because when guys go around trying to be pleasers and all that, how's that work out? Not very good. Through our marriage, we had very difficult moments and some good moments. We both tried to be good partners for our daughters because we wanted her to have a much better future that we had. And thanks to the Lord, at least we could accomplish that. Well, I'm glad your daughter's doing well. During our marriage, I saw some red flags about my wife, but I wasn't mature enough to really identify what's going on with her. And what is worse, I didn't know what to do. So mostly I lived always with doubts in my head about her, and that's what really started to make us grow apart. To the point that, as you mentioned on some of your videos, we were just roommates in our house. Again, get in line. How many marriages are like that? They're just roommates. They may even actually kind of like each other, but there's no sexual attraction. There's no polarity in the masculine-feminine dynamic. Nothing there. They just stay in it for the kids, because they don't want to tear apart the family. And some just are like roommates, they get along, and others hate each other's guts. Life is too short to deal with that bullshit. But with some good education and learning how things really are versus how people think they ought to be, people can either A, start over, or B, fix something that was once good. I got people on this channel to do both. We had a mutual friend, a woman who was like our sister at the time. Let's call her Fanny. We were very close and really care for each other, just like family. But at some point, she met somebody on the internet who was like a brother, who was the brother of a female friend of hers, who was from South American country. We'll call him Henry. Fanny and Henry started a distant relationship, but at the moment, I told Fanny that I feel the guy was a little suspicious. And my thought was that all he wanted to do was marry her so he could have a legal stay where we live. But she assured me that's not the case. Sure. Long story short, Henry managed to come over and start living with Fanny. And not long after that, they got married on his country because the laws about this matter where we live now. So he was a chatter Tyrone. I ended up accepting this relationship and tried to be a good friend of him and sometimes visit with them and spend the night drinking coffee and chatting. My wife has a job with a very different time than mine, so always she has to start very early hours of the day. Meanwhile, I had to work mostly late. However, I get up to bring my wife to her workplace and then come back home and get a little more sleep. So you're not sleeping at all, dude. That's nice of you to do as a gesture, but I think a lot of times she could just get up and go herself so you can get more sleep and rest. At some point, she told me that Henry offered to bring her to work because he also must start the day early, and we live not too far from each other, so at the moment, I thought that was okay. Uh-oh. This guy shouldn't be hanging out with your woman. Not a good idea. And Henry's obviously a South American version of Chatter Tyrone. I must mention at this point a very important fact. Due to the kind of job I had at the time, I ended up getting very obese. Because that job was extremely demanding, working at irregular hours, so I practically had to work or be available 24/7. That caused a very bad impact to my health. I had to eat anything at any time I could, And that kind of stress and tiredness I was subjected to really made a bad impact on my health and my life, to the point that my doctor got really angry and told me I must lose weight or I could not live to see my daughter marry. All this chain of events was increasing more and more the fact that I was starting to suffer from depression, just I didn't know at that point. Yeah, man, a lot of people follow down this route. It's amazing how people, I've seen dudes where they were fit, even athletic in high school, college. They get married, have kids, get on the career, and they just balloon up like a freaking Goodyear blimp. They let themselves go. They figured, hey, what's the point? You can't do that. And I know this guy knows this now, but I say this to all you younger guys starting off in life. You can't let yourself go. You must find time not only to exercise, but find time to cook clean, healthy food. I know it's very easy to grab Burger King or whatever on the way home or for lunch and all that. You got to take care of your body, because you will just destroy your body. And not to mention the fact that if you get very overweight or obese, you're going to turn your wife off. You know, women are less picky about that stuff if the guy's an alpha and a leader, but still, it's going to turn her off, okay? I can't be on here and tell guys to kick their girlfriends, fiancés, or wives to the curb if they gain a ton of weight and are unwilling to do anything about it, and then say it's okay for you guys to do that. No, it doesn't work that way. You got to take care of your bodies, take care of your health. And it literally here took the doctor telling him, look, you're going to freaking die if you don't do something to do it. And the older you get, the more overweight you are, the harder it is to lose. So it's best to be on the right track early on. Some good exercise, eating clean and healthy, it's not that hard. And if you don't know how to cook anything, YouTube. You obviously know how to work YouTube, guys. Otherwise, you want to found me. Learn how to cook things. It's basic stuff, and one at a time. After 6 months of practice, you'll be very good at making a bunch of good, healthy things. There you go. Anyway, 1 year before my dad passed away, I started to notice a strange behavior in my wife. When she got a phone call, she didn't answer the phone right away, but took her phone and answered in the bathroom or any room in the house or outside the house. Obviously, I'm not at home at the moment. You can always tell with the behavior strange with the phones. Leaving the room to answer it, texting, they hold on to that phone for dear life, that type of thing. Yeah. She also started to let her family come to the house to visit when I was coming home, so she knew I didn't want to interrupt them, and also for the reason that because of my obesity at the time, I really tried to avoid people because I felt hurt the way people look at me, just like I was a circus freak or something like that. All this kind of thing was just piling up like a giant pizza tower waiting to fall over my head. One day, I confronted my wife about her behavior. I told her that I was worried about it and that she was having any problem that I could help, but she told me not to worry, everything was fine. Yeah, sure. When they say fine, that is not fine. However, I point out that her behavior wasn't normal and that I sense something is just not right with her and asked her to please talk to me and tell me what's going on. I wouldn't be doing this, please that. I'd say something is going on and we are going to talk. Hence, the man being the leader, taking charge, sitting her down, laying down the law, and we're not going to walk away and end this conversation until we start talking. Not, please, and stuff like that. This nice guy shit gets you nowhere. After some hesitation, she finally told me she doesn't love me anymore and she wanted a divorce. Those words were like my soul was abandoned in my body. I just couldn't believe it, nor processing them. I'm sorry, man. I'm sure it must have felt like your heart was ripped out and stomped on by a freaking mule. I just started to cry because I felt like I did all that I could to be a good father and husband, although my relation with the wife was very rocky. Like an hour after that, I received a phone call from my family. I'm not a native of the country where we live, so my family lives in another country. That phone call was from my mom, telling me I need to fly over there because my father got very ill. He was detected with a brain tumor, and there was a surgery scheduled 3 days after. So that day was like Hellboy knocked me down 2 times with a huge fist. I had to fly the next day to see my dad. Oh my God, dude, when it rains, it pours. 3 days after, my dad got his surgery, but the tumor was very aggressive, and he could resist only 1 year more. Another huge blow to my life. Shit. You're like Job from the Bible, man. All this shit happening to you. But don't worry, guys. Our man here makes a comeback. He says, so, after all that, I was watching TV, and my wife was on my laptop, but she fell asleep, and I saw a message from Henry to my wife. First, I thought that was just for talking, which it wasn't strange for me. When I opened the message to tell him that my wife was sleeping, I saw very dirty texting to her, and I started to scroll up the messages, and I saw the truth about their affair. Henry the bad boy, the South American Chatter Tyrone. He shouldn't be talking to her, should be hanging out with her. There's lines that are not crossed. And I know you know this at the time, but it shouldn't have been allowed, my man. Never let that happen again. I couldn't go further because I was shocked. I woke her up to have her explain to me about this, but she just told me in a very cold way not to keep reading the messages, and that she told me she didn't love me anymore. I guess I don't need to explain myself how I felt at the moment. She's a liar and a cheater. End of story. She doesn't care. And you did your best to be a good husband and father. You obviously were programmed by blue pill BS when you were younger, but you did your best. Those are the thanks you get. If she wasn't happy, okay, fine. End it. Don't cheat on you. Don't have an affair with this dude you hang out with. That's awful. But it shows she doesn't give a shit. And it goes to show how cold and heartless some of these gals can be. You can do everything right. Doesn't matter. I tried to cope with another major blow to my life. I spent 3 weeks or more processing all that without sleeping and crying all the time. Finally, in a little flash of logic, I thought that I cannot put a gun in the head of nobody in order to make her love me again. So with a very broken heart, I told my wife that I accept her pleading for a divorce. But I just asked her to wait 1 year for our daughter to graduate from high school and fly to another country for her professional career. Once there, we could share the news with her about the divorce and tell her that it's not her fault, and that although we are divorcing, we both want her to graduate from the university and make a great future for herself. Pros and cons of that. Quite honestly, I think it would have been better just to end it right then and there, because that way then you're both not living in the house with just this resentment and pain blowing up. The girl's old enough to understand. I mean, she'll be emotional and cry, but that's part of being grown up. But you suffered enough, my man. You can't move on from what your wife did with seeing her every day living in the same house. I know you're strong and I know you want to do well for your kid, but you got to take care of you too, buddy. At first, my wife accepted my petition to her, but months later, I found out through Fanny that her husband Henry and my wife Lucy had a full-blown affair in public, and they even were introducing themselves as a couple. Translation, they want to make everybody know about it so that they can end it right then and there. This time, there was no crying, but only rage from me. So I confronted Lucy about this, and she didn't care at all. She doesn't care. At this point, our daughter didn't know anything about the affair, but when I saw the coldness of my wife, I only wanted to stir the shit in her life. So I told her that the next day she must tell our daughter about her affair or I will. At that moment, her eyes almost popped out of her skull on a total scare. Look at you showing some balls, finally. However, there's a flaw in this. You let her get to your daughter first, she can fill her head with whatever she wants. It'd be better that, I'm glad to lay down the law with your wife, by the way, but it'd been better if you got to the daughter first. The next day, I waited at home for her and our daughter. I saw through the window my daughter getting out of Lucy's car all in tears. Uh-oh. My wife also came in tears. I asked my daughter what her mother said about the matter, and of course, she told her side of the story, telling my daughter how awful a husband I was and that it just happened and she couldn't help it. That is why I wanted you to get to the daughter first. Awful husband, my ass. My daughter almost fainted crying out loud and repeated, "I hate Henry," over and over again. I had to take my daughter out of the house and drive some quiet place to talk to her and try to let her know that we're both going to try to overcome all this. 1 month after that day, we finally split and stayed that way for almost 8 years. During the first 4 years, my life was a wreck. I was on a deep depression and tried to just survive the days, but I was in a very dark place during this time. Bro, you were married all those years and your heart was ripped out. Of course you're in a dark place. But as you know now, you can make it through. All us guys, there is one guy watching this right now that at some point in their life hasn't gone through some very horrible crap. Depression, heartache, death of a loved one, who knows? And we get by, we survive. I've had a lot of shit happen when I was younger that hardened me and prepared me for this world and the realities of it. A lot of that's helped me become who I am today and helped me with what I talk about on this channel. The thought about ending my life crossed my mind a couple times, but thinking about my daughter persuaded me not to do it. But the pain was just unbearable. Months later, I got a promotion at work in another department, so this time I could work at the office with a predetermined hours and about 4 years ago, a new girl came to work in our department. She was stunning and beautiful and professional, and because she lived not too far from my home, I was asked if I could pick her up at her house, come to the office, and in my way home, just drop her at her family's home. I said, no problem, let's call her Nancy. Well, congratulations, you got a promotion. Things are starting to turn around. Promotion, and you're going to have stable hours, which will help you get better sleep, which will help you eat better and all that to help transform your body into a healthy state. He says, she was simply the nicest girl with a truly nice heart I've ever known. Just very young for me. But we were very good friends with the time I started to develop feelings about her because she treated me with respect, and also the fact she never showed any embarrassment to be seen with me in public. Well, let's ease up in the feelings department, but I get where you're coming from. At some point, she gave me the encouragement I needed to make a change in my life, but I didn't tell her at the time about my feelings for her. But I guess she could figure it out anyways. Trust me, she knew. I also started to develop some home skills like cooking and making all home chores so any woman could be sure that I'm capable of doing the things at home and not wanting a woman to be like my housemaid or wife or lover. Well, good for you. You learn how to cook and do all that stuff because guess what? It's not difficult to learn how to freaking cook and do things like that. And by you learning to cook, you can prepare healthy meals, which will aid you in your journey to lose the weight. Finally, I succeeded in my effort to lose some weight in order to have a stomach surgery 6 months later. Steadily, I started to lose weight, and after a year later, I could drop from 450 to 220 pounds, and a little more as 3 months passed by. Good job, man. And now those cooking skills will help you cook good food, and the steady schedule at work will help you get good night's sleep, because that's key. But he says, sadly, my story with Nancy didn't result in a love story, because she had a boyfriend living abroad, and finally a couple years ago, she left the country to be with him and recently married him too. Well, you didn't get her, but you know what? She came along at the right time in your life to help give you kindness, make you kind of have some strength to see yourself as worthy, to help see yourself in a better light, and that helped you move, get to the point where you lost the weight, all that, and so she came along at the right time. You didn't get her, and I'm glad you didn't try to break them up, so good for you. But now look at you. You lost all this weight, you got the promotion, things are looking up. Now we're going to get to the RP stuff. He says, anyway, despite I could lose a big amount of weight, there was still a major roadblock in my mind. The confidence to start dating again and the horror I felt to pass through all that crap again. I just couldn't make it. Because of this, I started to look for professional help, and God put an excellent psychologist in the path who would really help me get through my fears. However, there was something bad in my mind that felt like a computer virus, infecting and corrupting my performance. My blue pill programming. At this point, I wasn't aware about this matter, and although I started to date again and have some experience with women and some hookups, I just wanted to find the woman to share my life with, like in the Disney and Bollywood movies. And in result, I couldn't find any healthy relationship with women because they were only toxic gals that put an angelic face when I met them, but slowly but surely, they started to show their claws and fangs like some kind of vampire werewolf hybrid. Isn't it unfortunate how it is out there, guys? I know you all know. 3 months ago, I started to suffer again episodes of depression due to a difficult time I was passing through and watching random YouTube videos. I saw one of yours. At the moment, I cannot remember which one, but it captivated me. Suddenly, I started to realize that all the stuff you were talking about on that video was the same shit I was passing through. That was the moment of enlightenment I needed in my life. Suddenly, it all made sense. Suddenly, everything fell into place. Since that day, I watch your videos on a religious base. Every day, I see your videos, thirst of knowledge about learning the very pitch dark side of the gals and their nature. Now my life has a 180-degree change. Isn't it amazing what that knowledge will do, guys? From this point, I could keep writing a lot about the things related to RP topics that could change the ballgame in politics, things that, believe me, could represent a real nightmare for modern feminism. But that might be a topic for another time. Very soon, I hope. Ha ha ha. He says, SSM, your channel changed my life. Your channel really showed me the reality of female nature. I see everything different now, and I thank you for that. Your work is saving the lives of many men around the world. And the more men know and understand this content, the more happy we will be. And of course, the more pissed off women will be too. Ha ha ha. Yeah, pretty much. And you're welcome, bro. I'm so happy you found my work, and I'm so happy that my work is helping you out. I love to hear these stories. To conclude, just to recap about Lucy, Fanny, and Henry, Lucy and I got divorced recently, but since a couple of years ago, we started talking again to each other amicably and not with the grudge I felt back on those days. Well, she is your daughter's mother, so obviously, you can get along for your daughter's sake, but nothing more. And do not even think about getting back with her at all, dude. Never, never, never. As for Fanny, I've cut communication with her a couple months after the split because she just showed me that she cannot live without Henry. About Henry, he kept seeing Lucy whenever they can, but to be honest, I don't care anymore what Lucy does, and I don't ask my daughter for details. Last thing I know, Fanny and Henry apparently were divorcing or already divorced. As for me, I'm trying to grow stronger in body and mind despite this difficult time. Thank you, SSM. I wish I could know your name so I could thank you by your name and hope someday we can meet each other and buy you a beer. Well, bro, you're welcome. Again, I'm really happy I could help you out. And as for my real name, well, that is top secret. So, bro, I'm really glad to hear that you're doing well. And I know you're still healing, so take it one day at a time. And if you haven't done it already, start working out. Even if you don't have time for the gym, which you should because you're a single guy now, at least do something active. Walking, riding a bike, riding a pogo stick, skateboarding, I don't care, just do something. Get yourself physical movement. But ideally, join a gym. Do some resistance exercise because you're 51, got to keep those muscles strong, keep the bones strong and all that. Plus it's fun because guys like lifting heavy objects, just be safe about it. If you don't know what you're doing, get a trainer. It's worth the money, it's worth the investment, and it will keep you much more healthy. Eat well, eat healthy. You don't want to go back to the way you were, I'm being honest with you. And just keep learning this knowledge. And maybe one day, because you're obviously a relationship guy, maybe you'll meet a chick that actually has some old-fashioned values you can trust, and you'll learn the proper balance of being a good guy, but also being RP'd as well. But anyhow, guys, this is an example. Guy goes through hell, but he's turning it around. And so for you guys out there that are going through hell too, you can as well. It may take a while, maybe very hard, but you can do it. So I'm really happy about that. And again, it goes to show with the story here, the negative effect of the blue pill programming has on so many poor guys that don't know any better. So I do what I do. And I'm trying to obviously get a lot more younger listeners. It's only a small percentage of the very young listeners follow me because I can see the statistics provided by YouTube, but hopefully I get more in time. So for you young guys who watch me, share me with your friends, share me with your bros before the same fate happens to them that happens to so many other guys that are older. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Give this guy a positive comment in the comment section for getting through all this. He'd love to hear it. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.